Masters hangover. What can I say? This is the Awesemo.com Wednesday night late show, golf show, obviously. Myself, Ben Raza, here with Jason Roslin. As I said, we're through the Masters. We got RBC Heritage tonight, which it's a fun tournament, honestly. We were both talking before the show. I think we both like it. We've got some wind. We've got some weather. But how are you? How are you doing post-Masters?
Yeah, I'm definitely still a little bit hungover from the entire experience altogether. I broke my mic. It's sometimes celebrating some Tiger birdie putts. So you guys can't hear me. That's where I'm one of these big honking things. I think they have a mic built in. So if you can't hear me as well tonight, I certainly apologize. But we'll get that squared up for next time. Nonetheless, it really was an incredible week as far as watching and the pleasure of enjoying golf and enjoying watching Tiger win. As far as the DFS perspective, I made a huge mistake of splitting my core in the big dollar lineup. Had Tiger, who was 3% owned, but instead of playing him with my core guys, I split my core guys and called Paul Casey was the last guy in the lineup, and we all know what happened there. So my Tiger lineup had no chance of cashing. When you had Paul Casey in, because of the 6 of 6 was like 50% or more. It just, you had no chance if you had Paul Casey or Justin Rose for that matter. So my week rode pretty much on that lineup. I didn't really have. I had a 538 points in the Millie Maker, decent lineup, nothing great. 5x. Think about that.
The Millie Maker. That's what you're looking at with those. As you said, I was going. Justin Rose ended my week very fast. My cash team was awful. One of the worst cash teams on the site. Tournaments, when you make enough teams, you always have some good ones, obviously, but not in smaller field, higher dollar things. It's unfortunate when it's a major, but all you can do is kind of say it's just another week. The money's all the same. So you crush Heritage and you get smoked at the Masters. That's not the worst thing in the world. That's what we're going to have to do.
Yeah, and again, it's not the hugest prize pools, but listen, 100K is
good enough.
Yeah, exactly. I would certainly take that. So, a couple of other things that I wanted to bring up, just my thoughts on last week, and we won't spend too much time since we were a little behind. But one of the things, what do you think about the all 5 guys that came within Tiger? So Koepka and Molinari, etc., Finau, all hit the ball in the water on 12. Every single one of them. The 5 guys around Tiger. You think it's the hole? Was it fixed? It's not fixed. But it's crazy, dude. We saw Jordan Spieth lose the golf tournament on it a couple of years ago. So it's insane how hard that is on Sunday.
It was, yeah. I was stunned because it felt to me, it was like, all right, obviously there's something going on where they're not seeing it or they're not adjusting or something. But then you get Tiger, who obviously has got the most experience. And, he did what it seemed like the move was to do. Just hit it way left in between the bunkers and live to fight another day.
And even what Spieth did is, even if you take that line and you come up short, you're in the bunker. And it's not the worst bunker shot to be. You're hitting uphill, so you're still below the hole, which is the key, right? So you go short. If you go long, you're in that back bunker. Again, maybe that's why guys didn't do it, because that back bunker, that's almost as dead as being short right on that tee shot, because you could hit that ball back in the water so quickly if you try to get aggressive. It's a guaranteed 4 pretty much. It's such a great hole on Sunday with that pin location in the front right. So just one more thing on Tiger. What was your favorite shot? Mine, that drive on 13 on Sunday, dude. Oh, my goodness. Insane just for him. I thought it was in the trees. I honestly, I thought that it was way in the trees, and he was dropping 3. What was your favorite if you had one?
Obviously when he kind of surged, when he hit on 16 and it had a chance to go in, and then it was like, well, this is really, he looked like he's kind of in control. Then he smoked the drive. He really, he certainly no loose shots. Obviously 18, he knew that's the thing with Tiger. You're going to have to beat him. And that was obviously incredibly impressive. So it was fun. It was an awful DFS week for me, but just from a fan standpoint, just a phenomenal tournament. And this, I was happy to see, the Heritage field a lot stronger than I anticipated it being.
Way stronger. Interesting to you that Tiger was not the play of the week, though. It was Brooks Koepka scoring only a half a point less than Tiger. Tiger wasn't even in the Millie Maker lineup.
That was surprising, and it just speaks to, with some of these lineup constructions there, because Xander, obviously those guys were right with Tiger, he didn't get the streaks and some of the other peripheral stats that kind of boost you up. So it was, a week where there was ways to go about it. And like you said, the Millie winning lineup didn't have Tiger. What a shock that is.
Yeah, crazy.
Really is.
Goes to show, and we're going to talk about this in just a little bit about the high price guys this week. I mean, is it almost a similar carryover effect? But before we do that, let's just touch on the weather. It as much as we like this week, it's going to be brutal. Tomorrow will be totally fine. It looks like it'll pick up a little bit in the afternoon, the wind. Looks like the morning guys will have about sustained 10 miles an hour. The afternoon guys sustained 15 to 20, a little bit more. You'll probably see maybe a quarter of a shot better in the morning. Friday, though, is where it gets crazy. It looks like it's going to be 25 all day with gusts up to 40. Looks like we're going to get rain and thunderstorms starting at 1 o'clock, which means Friday afternoon's likely going to be a wash. But if it isn't, it looks like Friday afternoon is going to be it's going to be terrible. You don't even want to be outside, let alone playing golf. So are you taking the stance of guessing that the guys are going to play 36 on Saturday that, go AM, PM? And is that where you want to be?
Yeah, this is a real interesting situation because it's to the point I'm not, and I hate to start guessing about like, oh, well, they're going to stop it because you just don't know.
Yep.
As the forecast changes, it's going to continue to change. It seems like that, like Friday, even the guys that go out very early are going to be in brutal conditions. It's going to get worse, but it's not like it's going to rev up. So I'm really not getting too crazy. Obviously, I have tee time stacks because I think the range of outcomes with the weather is huge. I wouldn't be stunned to see a massive split either way, honestly. And that makes it really difficult. My one advice of what I think is kind of more apt to do this week is I'm actually not even just stacking tee times. I'm stacking like a really small range of like 4 or 5 guys that tee off within like 15, 20 minutes of each other. Because I think if you hit that little tiny range, it could actually make a gigantic difference.
Yeah, I think this week is the first week, I would say, of the year where you're going to get an edge. Don't know where it is. Don't know what side. Don't know from what 5 or 6 or 8 tee times. But you're likely going to get an edge, and likely the star out of that group of tee times or stars will likely be there late Sunday. Whether it's Fleetwood, the Fleetwood at 8:20 through the Simpson and Spieth at 8:50 in the morning on Thursday, or if it's the DJ Xander in the afternoon with Bryson DeChambeau and that group. So I think that you'll see the winner come out of those six groups on each side, personally, because it's probably 2 or 3 shots on the first 2 days, and that's going to decide a golf tournament for sure. When it comes Sunday, it's likely going to decide the golf tournament. So again, guessing the weather, all we can do is sit here and look at Windfinder and look at weather.com, and all we can do is say, look, it looks like they're going to get washed out on Friday afternoon. But if the winds are that bad Friday morning, they're not going to even send them out then. So that means it could go to a 54-hole tournament, which all bets are off. There's nothing we can do to tout that or to plan for that. There's nothing we can do. But I would say if I had to put my eggs in one basket, it would be the AM/PM stack at this point.
Oh, there's no doubt that if you had to, I think that's the way to do it. But I don't have confidence of this is one where I really think that you could see anything happen with delays. That changes the whole landscape of it. So for me, I'm just gonna build. I'm not ignoring it because I don't think you can ignore it, but at the same time, I don't think you can start. What I did, honestly, I think this is a pretty, as we delve into it. So my original plan this week, I was actually going to go really aggressive up top, and I was going to have 100% Benny on. And I actually moved off that because I don't think you can do that with this lurking. Because if you just get an unlucky tee time, you're toast. And so I didn't want to go super aggressive with anything because I don't feel sure enough that anyone's going to avoid the weather.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. So you mentioned about looking to actually stack tee time. So let's just go over a few of them. The morning one, first one that kind of jars my interest in, it's mainly one golfer, but they're kind of friends and they kind of have similar personalities. And I'm talking about Eddie Pepperell, Joel Damon, and Amraban Lahiri. Joel Damon and Eddie Pepperell, the first time they played together, they kind of interacted on Twitter. Again, they're both kind of effervescent and outspoken. They could draft off each other, and this is one. You okay? You good?
Yeah, I thought there was this is anarchy over here.
Yeah,
it looked like a bee on me, but no, we're all good. I'm just hallucinating.
It's okay.
Times are tough.
Yeah.
Continue.
You got Hedwig behind you, so I totally understand. I get it. So in any case, I do think that's an interesting tee time. I'll probably have a couple of those. Next one is Leishman, Garnett, and Berger. We were talking a little bit before the show. At the exact same time on the opposite side is Jim Furyk, Adam Long, and Stuart Sink. We would have loved to see Jim Furyk paired with Mark Leishman. Just two guys that have played pretty good this year that could have drafted off each other. Made it a lot easier. However, I don't really like any guys on either side of them except for Leishman and Furyk. How about you? Have you found yourself stacking any other guys? Are you into Berger or not yet?
Berger's a guy, I don't love him by any stretch, but he's cheap enough. I think that the upside is there. I used him a little. Like you said, the tee time kind of helps. There's some guys with him and in a similar bucket. Leishman certainly I thought was underpriced. I mean, he was that price basically for the Masters, so take that for what it's worth. Going back to it, Pepperell's someone I haven't played. You were on him. Players, he's playing with the Bucket Hat Man and Effie Barnrat, so we'll see if his hat blows away. But those are the type of guys I think you can take flyers on.
Yep.
I'm not really looking at that pairing in terms of something where I'm making a priority. But that's kind of what I think you have to do. You need to look for little ranges and say, okay, I got 3 or 4 guys here, and then I'm gonna, someone like DJ, someone like Kuchar, these top end guys. Yeah, can the will the wind affect them? Of course, but I'm more willing to have them stand alone and my kind of lower end guys be grouped together.
Sure. So does that mean that Fleetwood, Snedeker, McDowell, who is playing together same time on the other side, Molinari, Simpson, Spieth, any of those guys who pair together at this point? Fleetwood, Snedeker, McDowell is definitely, you got plenty of salary to work with after those 3. Molinari, Simpson, Spieth is very, very hard to do. I don't even know if they allow you to do it. I think I might have tried. I don't even think you can, or you're very, you're at the bottom of the barrel for the rest. Anything there? Any stacks that you favored?
Sned's pairing those are guys that I think are all highly in play. So I could look there. Graham McDowell's, we've seen him at Pebble. That's a similar course. Ned's is underpriced. And the other side of that, I'm not on Molinari. He's the one guy, not the one guy, but he's one of the guys I do worry a little about the hangover. I think you can certainly transition, but when that's got to take something out of you. I don't care who you are.
Yeah.
So he's not a priority for me. I mean, I know who I'm talking to here. I really like Spieth this week. Yep. I think that this is a chance for him to maybe mitigate the spraying just because he can club down. Now, I don't know if that'll fix it, but maybe it does. Rest of his game can come in. He's not going to be popular. So him and Webb are an interesting starting point.
Yeah. I'll touch upon Molinari, and I've been playing Molinari every week. I played him last week. It's just, again, I split my core, and I hate to keep bringing that up. I'm just so pissed at myself, to be honest with you. But he's 11-3 this week. Big difference. When I've been playing him, it's 9-1, 9-2, 8-6 last week, 8-5 the week before. That's my level to play Molinari at because I think that the upside is there. However, we saw a big letdown after the Arnold Palmer. He came in 56 at the Players, another Pete Dye design. I think it's a good spot to fade Molinari, but I don't think we're going to be the only people fading him. Osmo ownership that just came out before the show has him at about 9%. So again, not a ton of leverage fading him there, but again, you're not going to waste the money and of course his salary being 11-3. Webb, little nervous that he peaked over the weekend and gave it his all. I mean, he ended up coming T2 or T5, one of the two.
Yeah, he was right there, and then he missed a streak late that would have been nice, but what can you do?
Yeah, he still a pretty good showing over the weekend for Webb. Don't know how much he's got left in the tank. Obviously, Spieth has legitimately everything to prove at this point in the season, not his career, in the season. Obviously, listen, I'm pretty confident to say that last year's, even the year before's Wes Bryan and I on a driving range with a driver, I probably could have hit more than him straight and he won this golf tournament. So
we've seen. I mean, Brian Gay demolished the field here.
What, 10 strokes?
Yeah, 10 strokes. Wes Bryant, his off the tee, and Luke Donald obviously hasn't, but like he's one of the best course histories around, and he's not a good off the tee guy. So I think you're 100% spot on there. That if you're spraying it, you're going to have problems, but the opportunity is there to mask that, and that's what you're really asking with some of these guys.
Yeah, average strokes gained off the tee for winners in the last 5 years is like a half a stroke. That's and we, like I said, Wes Bryant lost strokes, so I think Spieth definitely has a shot. I definitely think he's in play. Low ownership, maybe trends up a little higher by lock just because of that tee time split going on that we're discussing. I figure we're not going to be the only ones that are going to try and play that angle, but because of the reluctance of the industry to play Spieth, I figure that it's just all going to go to Tommy Fleetwood, who certainly we'll talk about in a second. But before getting to Fleetwood, I want to talk about, and we're going to transition out of the tee times into talking about the players now for a little bit. DJ, DeChambeau, Kuchar, and Cantlay. All those guys are projected at 20% or right around there or more. All of them are going in the afternoon. Do you think it's going to bring ownership down in any of them, A? And B, are you playing one of them more than the other? So a three-part question. And C, are you apt to fade any more of them because of it? Or are these just guys all world-class and they'll figure it out?
So I think to start kind of backwards, they are obviously all, and I think they can figure it out. If the weather, it's funny, I think the weather is actually so bad and so confusing that in the end, and we'll never know, of course, what people would have done. I don't think people are going to change much because I don't know where you go. It's not like, oh, wow, I'm going to move all these shares off them because the opportunity in your other wave is still brutal. So I have a feeling it doesn't change that much. Kuchar, I think, is the obvious target. Having said that, I actually went away from him, and it was more just an ownership thing. I know he's playing fantastic. There's no reason to not like him. I think in cash, he makes a ton of sense. I like Bryson. I think he's going to be the lowest owned of the four. Certainly, as we all know, a technical, strategic kind of guy. I think he can work in these conditions. And you don't break the bank. DJ's a little pricey. I know he's the best player here by far, and I have some DJ, there's no doubt. Bryson was the one guy, though, I think is the sneakiest of the four.
Yeah, I think that Bryson obviously likes this golf course, third and fourth with a miscut sandwich in between there, but obviously he sets up a little better. I just don't think you can play DJ at 11-6 when he's got to take driver out, on average 4 times around. Is his approach game that much better than Jordan Spieth's, that where we need to pay $2,100 more for a little bit more consistency off the tee? Much more consistent, not a little bit, much more consistency off the tee. But it doesn't matter here. I guess that's the point of why I say a little, because it just doesn't matter here. It's so mitigated. So I'm having a lot of problem paying 11-6 for DJ and playing him. I don't play Matt Kuchar over 9K. I just don't do it unless he's literally the class of the field, which he's not here, in my opinion. It's other guys. I'm not going to play Kuchar. Xander's interesting. I think that he gave it his all last week as well.
Yeah, he was right there.
Yeah, he was right there. So I would rather go to Bryson, who had to kind of fight back into the tournament. If I was playing one of the guys up here, it would be Bryson. Cantlay's course history speaks for itself. Obviously, it sets up perfectly for him. But he was right there as well, which is the first time he'll be coming here after being right there at Augusta. He missed the cut and came in like 40th, I think, in his first 2 trips the last 2 times. Prior to coming here. So, yeah, really tough for me since, you're going to get like 100% total ownership between these 4 or 5 guys. Is it too much to take a stance to fade them all? I mean, I can't really fade Patrick Cantlay. I am the fan club president and all. So.
It's, I don't want to base it off 1 year. Obviously, last year we saw that this tournament, you didn't need any, you fade them all and you were at a huge advantage. Satoshi, Siwoo, there were cheapies up and down the top of the leaderboard.
Yep.
So I think it gets a little dicey if you start fading, that 9K range. There's a lot of guys there. So I have no problem starting a team with someone like Cantlay, or even starting a team with someone like Fleetwood, who's in that next range. But you want to be cognizant. They still are some of the better players. Obviously in this field are the best. And besides DJ, you still have some top end talent here. Maybe a little overpriced and maybe coming off emotional spots. So I'm kind of indifferent of where you're starting there. I will say, though, I definitely did omit some teams where I have no one. I started in the nines and made a really balanced lineup that looks pretty good on paper.
Yeah, there are a lot of different ways you can go about this. I think that there are enough guys a little bit cheaper that you can mix into lineups to get that. So next range of chalk that I want to talk about. Sorry, let me get my notes back up. It is okay. So the leverage up top, we already talked about Molinari. You and I are both kind of a little nervous. Jordan Spieth, we both seem to be on, and I think that he's going to end up coming closer to 12% more than he is 7%, which, again, it just matters about what you want to go. You want to go 4X, then you're probably going to have to go more closer to 50% than 30% than what's being suggested. That's kind of my thought. Siwoo Kim, though, man, it looks like he's going to be like 6%, and he's coming in some great form. I know he's overpriced, but for me, that's a spot to leverage the overprice. I don't really care about his price if he's going to come in the top 10. I really like the spot for Siwoo Kim here.
It's funny you said that. Friend of the show from chat, Jack, just asked about Siwoo. Was asking about his ownership. I don't think he's going to be popular either because he's glaringly overpriced. In a way, though, it makes me more interested than I would have been. Because with Siwoo, it's somewhat binary. He's got a lot of win equity. He's got a ton of miscut equity. If he misses the cut, if he's 9K or 7K, it doesn't really matter. You're in huge trouble, obviously. And if he wins, you'd rather take the ownership discount. Like, yeah, it'd be great if he was 7K, but 20% of the people would have him. So I actually think I'm more apt to take some flyers. Now, it's a bigger opportunity cost because you're allotting – he is overpriced. But if you're looking for an aggressive tournament play, I totally get the logic there.
Yep, absolutely. I think it's a pretty good spot. So that's the leverage. We always like to talk about the leverage. Next batch of guys, we've already talked about Fleetwood. We haven't talked much about Webb Simpson, Jason Kokrak, and then maybe to the little lesser extent, Charles Howell, Ian Poulter, and Jim Furyk. All those guys are going to be pretty chalky, all over 15%. Let's break it into two. Let's start with Simpson, Kokrak, and then the other three, Howell, Poulter, Furyk. So for me, I'll just give you my thoughts quickly. Webb Simpson, I think we already discussed a little bit that he's coming off a high, but this course does set up really well for him. I think he is reasonably priced. He hasn't been playing great. He missed the cut at Valspar, kind of a 16th at the Players, which is fine. That's good. And then, of course, the great start last week. I think it might be a spot for him to pick up another top 10, pick up some of those FedEx Cup points, whatever. It doesn't matter to us, but maybe it matters to them. I do like Webb. Don't like Kokrak. I've been fading Kokrak forever.
Yeah, you and me both. Yeah, that's why I look like this. This
is what happens, man.
Let it be a lesson to people out there.
Are you going to play him this week, or are you going to fade him?
No, I'm not playing Kokrak, and I get it. He's playing great. He's putting phenomenal, which will regress. And until there needs to be some changes. It's not, and I want to be clear. And I know people may take this and be somewhat skeptical. I try not to be at least stubborn where I'm like, I'm just going to fade him because I've been fading him. I'm open to playing him. I just truly don't think it's another good spot. I don't like it at all. And if he's popular, I will go elsewhere. I like Poulter more. I know he's on the other side. You mentioned Webb. I would try to find a couple $100 to get to Webb, Fleetwood, those types. I think they're just in a clear tier above someone like Kokrak.
Yep. I certainly agree. Again, that hasn't proven well. Here's what I'll say. If you look at Kokrak's strokes gained numbers, they're fantastic, right? But he's done a lot of work off the tee. He's not going to be able to gain that many strokes off the tee this week. It's just there's no opportunity to do it really here. So I think that'll be mitigated. We'll see if the putting regresses.
You would hope.
The dude has been a top 20 tee to green player this year. It's really.
He's making hole-in-ones. He's doing it all. Bogey-free rounds, everything. It's ridiculous. So
everything except for a win, which honestly kind of scares me.
That'll be the last draw. No, I mean, as we work down, this is a range that I think you're going to see a lot of people. You can get 2 or 3 of these, especially if you omit that top end. And it's a nice build. Fleetwood's another guy. He's going to be very popular. He was 91 or 90, the same price basically for the Masters. So it's hard for me to look at this one and obviously a much weaker field and not feel pretty good. I know it's his first time here, but his game should translate basically anywhere. He's that good.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think Fleetwood is. I don't really care about the price, to be honest, or the ownership there. At some point, you got to throw them out, right? You just got to throw out price and ownership. Obviously, price is great, but you got to throw out ownership. Very similar to like what we did with Matt Kuchar last week, 7,900. Both you and I said, look, turn the blind eye. He's gonna be there on Sunday, and sure enough, he was. Scored 88 points. So, all right, let's go to the next section of guys here, and the leverage above 8K are names that I don't know that we like, except for one, and he's trending higher, and I like him a lot this week. Although he has an afternoon tee time, it's Matt Fitzpatrick. Loves this course, playing really good. Only the 78 on Thursday at Augusta was really his only blip in the radar. I do like Fitzpatrick. Brandon Grace and Billy Horschel are the other two guys that are going to be under 5%. Brandon Grace, a former winner. Billy Horschel, top 10 last year. Either guy going to make your pool this week?
Horschel's definitely not. Sorry, Billy, you're out. Brandon Grace, people are going to artificially boost him because of, the U.S. Open, the wind, he hits it low. I do think this, and it's shown out in his course history, it is a good course for him, though. When he doesn't have to be aggressive off the tee, he avoids his awful spraying sometimes and gets himself into trouble. And if he can lean on the rest of the game, it's fine. The biggest issue I have with him, and you mentioned Fitzpatrick, he's one of many. The lower 8K range to me is absolutely stacked. There is a bunch of plays that I really like. So he's a guy that I don't mind playing, but the priority list is he's behind a lot of other names.
Yep. I same with me. I'm having trouble. I like Sung J M, who we haven't talked about yet. And the next batch of guys who I've kind of grouped together. So Sung J M, Young Hyun An. This is kind of the low 8K range that's going to be very chalky this week. What are you doing? Ian Poulter. Sorry, two more names. Ian Poulter and Ryan Moore. All very popular. And Mark Leishman, for that matter.
Yeah, all of them.
All of them going to be super popular. Are you playing all of them? Are you playing a couple of them? What's your plan in this area?
I'm playing all of them. I really am. Poulter's a little pricier, and I actually have a little less than him. The other four, though, for various reasons, I just it's so hard for me to kind of get away from them. I really like the spots. I think that ownership they're not going to be unpopular. We know they're going to carry ownership, but there's so many of them that they all can't be massive chalk. That's just not possible.
Right.
So for various reasons, I mean, Ben Yan's a guy, I'm not going to stop playing him. The putting is awful, and he still gets there. Sun J.M., I think we both recognize, as many people have. The guy's just fantastic. He is playing, you pointed out before the show, he's playing with a creative player. How they gave him the tee time with that guy who I didn't know existed, Ray Franz.
Yep.
That's not a real person. We mentioned Leishman and Ryan Moore. I think is a great course for him. A shorter hitter can obviously not have to hit driver. He can lean on irons, wedges, and really have a fine week.
Yeah, and he's been playing pretty decently too. So I can see why all of these guys would be, to a degree, a little popular. So, okay, I think we can move on to the 7K. And believe it or not, this is why it's going to maybe go a little bit quicker here tonight than normal, is that we only got 4 other golfers that are projected over 10% owned this week, other than all the guys that we just mentioned that are all above 8K. Excuse me, sorry. In those 4 guys, Lucas Glover, another Luke List, Russell Knox, and Rafa Cabrera-Bello. Lucas Glover, here's the thing, is that when he's been chalk, it's the only time he's played bad this year. So it makes me a little nervous. Course history is okay. He made the last 3 cuts, all top 32, something like that. It's not great. Luke List, good course history, not in good form.
No.
I would rather, if you're going to play Luke List, whoever's playing Luke List, I'd like them to message me, I don't care when, and tell me why they're playing Luke List over Keith Mitchell, who's $400 cheaper and less ownership. I just see Keith Mitchell as higher upside. Keith Mitchell went out and won the Honda Classic, which is exactly what Luke List almost did last year. So clearly their games are somewhat similar. They both the long ball. They've both gotten much better around the green. Keith Mitchell's found a new putter. So that's what I'd say is if you're going to play Luke List, I would implore you to look at Keith Mitchell. I don't know that either of them are great for this course, but Luke List came in third here last year. So obviously there's a little something. Russ Knox I do like, and Cabrera Bello approach game has been very streaky. So if I had to pick one, it would be Knox. How about you? What do you make of these four guys?
Interesting range. I'll get Knox out of the way first. I think he's my favorite of them. The irons are just unstoppable right now. Good player, can play in the wind, no problem. RCB is a guy that in certain, and this is where we've both talked about the importance of correlating some of your teams. If it's calm, say the wind doesn't get crazy, he's such a good iron player. I think that sets up really well. If this becomes a scramble fest, though, I don't want him. He's not good around the green. I think he could really struggle there. Glover, I'm kind of indifferent. He makes sense. He's an incredible ball striker. But you did talk about, and you're 100% right. When you're that bad of putter and you're chalk, you can be a pretty lucrative fade because he's not immune to just taking himself out of the tournament, a la Luke List, who lost 7 strokes putting at Valero in 2 rounds. Highly disturbing.
Wow.
I do have a little Luke List for what it's worth, and I think that his around the green game can keep him in it, but you can't lose. I mean, that's beyond even Benny on, that's disturbing.
It sure is. And again, I guess I would ask the question: are you playing as much Sungjae as you are Benny on?
No, I'm playing more Benny on.
How come?
Because the thing about Benyan that I love is that the stats bear it out. His around the green game is phenomenal. Now, Sungjae has no leaks, which is ridiculous, and obviously he's a much better putter, and he's solid across the board. But I still get sucked in to the notion that Benyan has so much room because if he gains 0 strokes putting, he's at a massive advantage of where he's been. Like he's been losing 5 or 6.
Yeah, first round leader when he gained a stroke and a half at TPC.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Instant first round leader. That's just how it happens. So yeah, I just found that interesting. I am finding myself playing Sungjae Im over Benyan in that scenario. I found that honestly, you could play them both together. They're both.
I certainly have.
So, yeah, they're both playing so well. So I don't want to make it look like you can only pick one or the other. Definitely not the case. If you're a one lineup person, there's nothing wrong with putting them both in that one lineup for sure. All right, so something that the guys at Osmo and Alex added to the PGA model last week, which it's super helpful for me. I love it. It's also helpful for bettors. It's helpful for all of it, and it's the make the cut percentage. They built it into their model and produced the algorithm for it. So it's going to help this segment. It's very interesting to see what it priced out and what the guys' salaries are corresponding to that. So. First one is Daniel Berger. I think you mentioned that you might be okay with him. He's a 65% to make the cut. Do you agree with the model or disagree with the model?
I think that's fair. I think he does make the cut this week. His putter has kind of been masking some really ugly iron play. Maybe kind of take a step back. I think he's going to settle in a bit during this year, and this is a fine course for him. So I think he finds the weekend and is just fine.
Okay. Oh boy.
No,
don't take this the wrong way, Danny Berger. I don't expect you to watch the show, but I don't think he's the world-class golfer. I don't think he's the world-class golfer that we saw a couple of years ago. I just don't think his swing is as fluent as a Patrick Cantlay. You put those two together on a tee box, and 100 out of 100 people are going to take Cantlay's swing. I guess that to me is when I look at it. Now, again, Jim Furyk has made more money than almost everybody on tour, right? And he has the ugliest swing, that I've ever probably seen. Now, does that mean he can't be a good golfer? No, it doesn't. But I just don't think – I think that Danny Berger has too many holes in his game with that swing. It's too volatile, and he doesn't have the distance to get over it. He doesn't have the distance to kind of get over the ball striking not being great. And if you don't put him on Bermuda, then he struggles putting a little bit. Now, granted, I think he's a good grinder. I think that at the U.S. Open, when his last top 10, and prior to that, dude, his prior top 10 to the U.S. Open last year was at the 2017 Travelers. That's how bad it's been. I'm not sure if he gets a pass from people like me because he got hurt. The wrist kept flaring up, and I don't.
I don't know if that's derailed what I thought would be a nice progression for him. There's no doubt that he hasn't, if you would have asked me a couple years ago, where would he be priced in a field like this? I would say, in the nines,
9-5.
probably. Yeah, 9.5. I think that's exactly where I would go too. So he's in a different tier. He's with Bud Cauley's of the world.
Yep.
We'll see, but these are the kind of cuts he needs to start making these if he's going to progress, obviously.
Yeah, or get back to some form. And a guy that has kind of gotten back to that form of that year of Danny Berger, and someone who we didn't mention is Kevin Kisner, or we talked about very small, and I don't mean to backtrack, but Kisner has kind of returned to that form. So it's interesting that kind of Berger's gone the other way. And maybe Berger should be priced with Bud Cauley in a field like this. Maybe that's really where Berger's progression is. And again, hey, he can make a dang good living out there on the PGA Tour being in this Bud Cauley area. I just think that we saw a little bit too much from Berger. I know he took the FedEx St. Jude Classics against really, kind of weaker fields. Again, he had DJ in there, so it's not like he didn't play, against schlubs. He played against DJ and some other good golfers, but certainly didn't have a field like we're going to see this week. All right, so I've spent enough time on Berger. How about Ollie Schneiderjan? 57% to make the cut by the model. I think that's probably pretty fair, but I think the form is good enough. I think he does make the weekend.
I'm going to say he doesn't. And the form is definitely better. He had a god-awful stretch from Waste Management, not this one, the one before that, till he showed up at the Players. Honestly, that was the first time where I thought he actually got a raw deal. It could have been better than 16th. That water ball late. Rebounded and made another one. I think was either Valspar or Valero. He played pretty good. I worry
Valero, yep.
Yeah, Valero. I worry a little bit if it's brutal out there with him, just because we've seen his around the green game sometimes really go awry. So, I don't hate the play. I think he's probably a true coin toss to make it through, but I'm going to have to say a short week for Ollie.
Yeah, next two guys are some of the highest guys on this list projected by the model to make the cut. And of course, if you want to see your specific golfer, the model is for premium members. It's great. It gives everything from win, top 10, top 5, make the cut, etc. So definitely check that out. Keith Mitchell, 62%. We brought him up a little bit, and then Matt Wallace, second highest guy behind another one we'll talk about in a bit, 66%. I got Matt Wallace on a bounce back. I think this is a good course for him. I think he grew up in similar type courses in England, and I don't mean the swampy areas. I mean tight, tactical, shorter by standards of the PGA Tour. I think Matt Wallace is a pretty safe bet to get through this week. Keith Mitchell, I'm not overly excited about, but I still think he's a pretty decent play.
I'm basically in line with you. Matt Wallace I think he's just a really good player. We're going to see that bear out. He's obviously been playing well. Masters, it's tough, man, and it got
so jittery.
Yeah, it's tough. It's I think he bounces back just fine. Keith Mitchell showed me, obviously, and a lot of people, a lot during the Florida swing. I think he's certainly made strides. I mean, he won Honda. It's very impressive. I don't know if this is a good course for him. In fact, I think it's a bad course for him. I worry about the scrambling. I wouldn't be stunned to see him also pack the bags early.
Yeah, 62%. I think you'll probably see that a little higher on a course where driver you can take out a little bit more.
For sure.
I'm sure the model has that stuff. Okay, so moving down, Bud Cauley, who we just talked about, 60%, and Luke Donald, who this will be his third start of the year, but the model says he's going to make the cut 62% of the time. He showed me something at Valspar. And he fought at Valero as well. So I'm in on Luke Donald this week. I think the price is right. And I'm also in on his country mate, who's the highest percentage guy to make the cut out of these guys, who I've been all over, and that's Eddie Pepperell, who we already talked about. I like both those guys to easily get through the weekend. I'll take it looks like I'll take the model side on this one.
I'm with you. Luke Donald, he didn't make my teams. I didn't play as many as I usually do because of this weather, but I read a lot into his Valspar. That showed, and we know he loves this course. Pepperell's a guy, another one similar to Matt Wallace. He's just a very solid player, and he should be making cuts like on the tour regularly. So I'm with you. I think these are some of the lower 7K range that you can go to kind of round out some of those lineups.
Yep, for sure. A couple other guys, Mac Hughes and Scott Stallings, both playing maybe way above what we've seen them recently. I mean, Mac Hughes had a top 10. Scott Stallings had a top 10 at Valspar. Both under 60%, 54 for Hughes, 56 for Stallings. Either guy make the cut?
I'm going to say Stallings does and Mac Hughes doesn't. Mac Hughes is a guy, and golfers obviously they progress, especially when they're younger. He had notoriously horrible splits in terms of easy course, hard course. This is, especially with the wind, can be a very challenging course, and I don't think that's a good thing for him. But we'll see it. He has been playing better. I still think that he's a little riskier of the two.
CT Pan, 57%, Ches Reavie, 61. Ches Reavie and Scott Piercy, who's 62%. Much cheaper than we've seen. I think that's where a little bit more chalk will go with the higher price name. The lower price names. I can't get there.
Neither can I. We've both talked about it, and you echoed this a lot with Ches Reavie. He's a form golfer, and when he gets on a run, he gets going. It's not in good form. He's not a good scrambler. Scott Piercy is just, I don't know what to do with him. His irons are bad, and the only good thing he used to have, he was an incredible iron player. So those guys maybe they could find the weekend, but I'm staying away, and I feel pretty confident that doesn't burn me.
Yeah, and you can definitely see a long-term form builds into the model, which I understand. And those two guys, Reavie and Piercy, certainly have outperformed Brian Stewart and Ryan Armour over the career. But right now, Stewart and Armour are both playing better, or at least Stewart is. 56 and 57% make the cut. Either of those make your cut, and do either make the cut?
Brian Stewart made my cut. I think he is playing well. Obviously running some good form. Game sets up for a course like this. The price is right, 6,700. There are some other options. I'll give my obligatory plug for Bill Haas, who's 6,900. Another type of guy. He's really having a tough problem off the tee, but similar to Spieth, and maybe this can mask it. And we know his short game's incredible. He can get crazy hot with the putter. So another guy I don't go near, similar with Stewart. I'm not going there in high dollars or cash or anything. But when you're talking about 100K up top and you got to beat 100,000 people, those are the type of players I think you can look to.
For sure. Okay, one guy, 61%, who I guess that number stuck out to me because all the other guys around him are under 60. Austin Cook, who you mentioned to me before the show, you like a little bit. I was on him at Valero. I thought it was a perfect place for him. Ended up almost getting inside the line and then tanking real bad towards the end. I think he had a couple double bogeys and obviously missed the cut. You're on him this week. Tell me why I should get back on him.
Yeah, I actually like him at Valero too. He's a guy, it's been not a great year. Showed some life at Valspar though, which I do think translates. He's got RSM, success. That was his win, and I think that's a decent, exactly, right up the street. And he's just that kind of game. He's not a long hitter, can be very crafty around the greens. 6,600, you're not going to see ownership go there because the recent form isn't great. So this is a course, I think that if we look back, in a larger sample size, it will be the type of track that he should have success on.
Absolutely. Next guy who stuck out to me because of his price, and he's been playing okay this year, a couple of good starts, but of the guys around him, priced lower than him or priced above him, there's only one guy that's tied with him, Denny McCarthy at 6,400, but Harold Varner III at 6,300 is 58% to make the cut. Guys that are priced 6,300 or below, he's by far and away the top leader, and that Troy Merritt comes in 4% lower. And then everybody else is like 50% or lower. So I think that's a really good spot. I think that Varner, 62% of his fairways out in Valero, which was 12th in the field driving accuracy. So that does tell me that he might be, a little bit in form. He had 23rd there. So I do like Harold Varner at 6,300. He's got that morning tee time if that pans out. So Harold Varner, 6,300. Honestly, it looks like the $150 and the $100 and the $75 already filled, which pisses me off because DraftKings, they got to put those up. They got to put more money in.
Yeah, they should.
They're filling way early every week. I didn't even get in them this week. I normally do it right when we're about to talk, and clearly I missed it. So they need to go up. In any case, I think he's a good spot for something like that, a 3-entry max. I think you'll get good leverage there, and I do think he makes the weekend this year. I think he's in good enough form.
Interesting, yeah. He obviously stood out just from a name and where the guys he's grouped with, he's better than. My only caveat is on most of my lineups, I didn't have to dip that low. But if you do, he is one of a short number of guys that I think you could look to. He's just a better player than most. I don't think it's the best course for him, but again, when you're looking at that range, you're asking the guy to take a cut. I'll just take the best available golfer.
Yeah, and it's funny. We saw this a lot last week in that all the guys were birdieing the same hole. So if you look at Jordan Spieth, who scored 74 points, and Matt Fitzpatrick, who scored 77, there was like 12 guys in between them, and they were only separated by 3.5 points. Mm-hmm. So I think you're going to see something similar this week, where there's just not that many scoring holes. There's enough, but I think that Harold Varner, if he makes the cut, is probably going to give you some really good value at 6,300, just because he will give himself plenty of birdie looks. So okay, that was all the names that I had. Again, because of the field, it's actually only 132 players, if I'm not mistaken, because it's a classic, which classics are 132, opens are 144, invitationals are 120. I don't know why they do it. It's why they do it. Majors are whatever they want. Masters was 87. So let's. I have to give myself one pat on the back, and I absolutely nailed my hot take of the week last week. I came here and told you that 10 shots was going to come into play, and that we'd get 65 or more golfers to the weekend. We got exactly 67. It's just, I wish I could have bet that, because it was, if you go statistically on how the fields have been separated this year on the PGA Tour, you've seen guys that have been 10 shots outside the lead getting cut almost 60% of the weeks this week. So the fields are closer. Competition's better. I just had that feeling. So should have made some money on it, but didn't. Let's see if I can make it 2 in a row. I got all right. It's probably not too much of a hot take to be like, okay, winning comes out of Fleetwood, Spieth, or Siwoo Kim. It's probably not too hot, not enough hot of a take. So I'm going to go to Luke Donald as a top 10 this week.
Ooh, Luke Donald.
Comes back to his course form that he loves, proves all the truthers wrong, that the miscut last year was just he was not healthy. He's a top 10 this week.
I was going to say, it's funny, and we did not talk about this. I also had a hot take, and I was like, I don't know if it's hot enough. What I wanted to say was that the winner is South Korean. Because
so what, we got 3 guys?
I mean, I don't know. We might have. I think Wee Kim will win, and I'm more thinking obviously Im and An and Siwoo, of course,
and KH Lee. Yep.
Oh yeah, KH Lee. Don't sleep on KH Lee, who just gains 50 strokes with the irons. The only guy who can do that in a given week. Yeah, I think. I guess my hot take it's going to be around Benyon. I know that's pretty obvious, but I think he's going to be in the top 5. He's going to be popular, but this really does seem the weather can change this all. I hope that it doesn't derail the spot, because I'd love to see it for him and Im. I know they've been burning edges here and there. This seems like the type of tournament where someone like that can break through and get that elusive first win.
Yeah, and definitely check the golf, not the golf betting show, just the betting show out on Fridays. I'm sure you talk about that. But Benyon's odds, and Sungjae M, and Tommy Fleetwood, and Jordan Spieth, all in that 25 to 35, 40 range. That's pretty good odds for this course when you have DJ as the leader, only taking out 4 drivers a day. Remember that DJ has to play his approach game up to par with a Spieth and Fleetwood, who are notoriously better than him at that statistical category. So I just think that those type of odds, I think you're getting better, because DJ's real odds in a tournament like this should probably be like 14 to 1. Just because his best weapon, you can't take it out.
Yeah, it's negated. I did want to say real quick, and obviously we're wrapping it up, but on FanDuel and Yahoo, which obviously we're going to pump out a little more content with them, you always want to be price specific. Guys like Ryan Moore, I found them cheaper over there. Answer, who we didn't really talk about a ton on the show, really cheap. So if you're playing Yahoo, which you should check out, because they do have they're building up the golf product, you really want to compare those prices, because you can build teams, and you've talked about this, that are like 55,000 DraftKings money. Like, you can, depending on the pricing, and that's a huge advantage, obviously.
That's insane. It certainly is. FanDuel values this week, actually, I think there's a lot of value in that Spieth, Fleetwood, Siwoo Kim range. They're all cheaper on FanDuel. You can get a ton of them in. So certainly look. And FanDuel this week, on the same note as Yahoo, FanDuel's got $50K to first place for the $9. So certainly decent there.
It's not chump change. Like, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely not chump change. So with that, did we miss any before we go? Did we miss any questions in the chat?
I don't think so. I think we're good to go. Obviously, as we always say, you can find us in Slack. You can sign on up. We'll be in there, and we'll see. The golf season. It felt like the Masters. Obviously, it was such a build up, and then it's like, we still have 3 more majors. We got a bunch of tournaments. Like,
in a month, too, right?
It's a long season. I have to remind myself of that because it's like, oh my God, Justin Rose ruined my entire year. Not yet. Maybe he did, but I hope not. There's a lot more golf to play. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, since we started,
I got a couple minutes for sure.
I'll just tell you, Bethpage, that's in your neck of the woods. I scheduled a vacation for that weekend, which I totally forgot that the PGA Championship moved up. Because I would have come, because that's my favorite course. I played that course. It is I played it from the tips where they're going to be playing it.
Yeah, you don't want to mess around with that course.
It's amazing. It's so incredible. I can't wait for the PGA Championship to be on it. They just put out satellites. They named it. I think it's called the Bethpage Battle, I believe is what it's called.
It's alliteration. Beast Battle something.
Yeah, something. Anyways, it's a $3,180 contest. They have satellites from anywhere from $5 all the way up to $380. If you're interested in getting into a contest like that, or the Fantasy Golf World Championship that they just came up with, that's a 1.25 million guaranteed. Look at the qualifiers to the satellites. And the reason why I say that is because the competition there seems to be a lot less. So what I mean by that is a $7 satellite that'll get you into a $200 qualifier. That has seemed to be a really good way to get in if you don't want to allocate a ton of funds to it. You don't want to allocate a ton of bankroll, but you want to get the opportunity to play in it. I'd look at those. I did a show last year with the Fantasy Degenerate podcast and Brad Messersmith before he went to school and he went back for his MBA. We did a show on that and talked about using that strategy and looking at the $8 satellites into the qualifiers, just the competition level and being able to get into a tournament. And then also when you get into the $200 qualifying level, you're only playing against 10 guys.
Yep, small
20 guys, small field. So your opportunity to win it is much more. So I wanted to bring that up. Some great satellites, some great contests coming out. Obviously, they've got the Millionaire Maker posted already. It's terrible. 33% is going to first.
Just awful.
It's why we play it. And I don't get it because we just filled 4 million like 36 hours early. And they just don't trust the product. I guess, I don't know, man.
What do I know? But no, it's true. Before, last thing I'll say is, It is always fun. I get that question all the time about like what to do, if you try to get in this tournament. And yeah, there's no rhyme or reason, but I do think you can bootstrap it. Like, take an allocation, try to grind it. My one advice, and everyone is different, is take a portion and try not to. I'm living proof. I got murdered the last couple of months on chasing satellites, and it was just sloppy. You don't want to do that because it can get away from you, but that is always fun. And getting in some of those tournaments, it's a whole different environment. Obviously, the World Championship, the way they do that is really cool. It's only a couple hundred people, and it's a blast if you can get in.
Yeah, and hopefully within the next couple of years, it will be live.
I know.
We'll be at the playoff event. Yeah, it's coming. It's definitely coming. It's the last sport to get it, but it will get it. So with that, find us in Slack, like Ben said. Like this video, but enjoy the RBC Heritage in Harbortown as much as you can. Friday is going to be a grind for the players and for us as the DFS players. It's going to be brutal. Once you get through that, though, it should be a pretty fun week. So until next week, when we're actually going to be talking Euro next week.
That's right.
DraftKings has the Zurich does not do contests for Zurich. So we'll be talking about the Trophy Hassan and the duel for the dagger. $10 buy-in. We'll probably get maybe $50K to first. That's probably my guess. They've been running satellites for it. So until then, for Ben, I'm Jason, guys. Cheers, everybody. See you next week.
Good luck.